Okay, so moving into the 1930s, if you can talk about that and the outbreak of the war, what you remember.
Well, I remember, you know, just helping at the Jewish club, waiting to serve. They used to provide meals for all the troops sailing through Durban on their way to up north or to Europe or wherever.
Right.
And we used to help at the Jewish club to serve the meals. And
so how old were you at the outbreak?
I did a BA. I often think of the subjects I did in my first year, which were amazing. I did a tremendous variety of subjects, including which were English,
right,
criminal law,
wow,
economics.
So you were quite an academic. Yeah.
Yes. And what was the fifth one? I can't remember the fifth one. But I loved being at university. I loved the acquisition of knowledge.
And which university did you attend?
At the Durban.
Right. And let me ask you, who was your first boyfriend?
Oh gosh, that was at university. I think, yes, I do remember his name. His name is Howard Verco, and he was an engineering student.
Wow, okay.
How I met Mickey. I lived with my parents in our then the house that we had in Howard Avenue, which was just below Howard College, which was the campus of the university.
Right.
And at that stage, my mother's youngest brother, Edward, was married to a Cape Town girl called Joy Wolfe. And Joy and Edward had a son called Gregory, who was about just over a year at that time. And they had bought a property outside of Durban on the north coast.
Right.
And they were rebuilding it. The property consisted of a one-roomed cottage, and they were building a proper house. And while this was going on, they were living with my parents in Howard Avenue. And Joy, who came from Cape Town, was a great friend of Lily Sachs, who was Mickey's sister.
Right.
And Mickey was in the army during the war. After the war, without a matric certificate, he talked his way into Oxford University, into Oriel.
Yes.
To read medicine. And he was at Oxford, and he came out to Potch, where his parents lived, Potchefstroom.
Right.
To see his parents. And of course, after a couple of days of Potch, after having tasted life in Oxford, he nearly went crazy.
Right.
So his sister suggested he come down to Durban on holiday.
Right.
And she gave him Joy's phone number, which was our phone number. And he contacted Joy, and through Joy, I met Mickey, and he was there only for a couple of days, and then he went back to Potch. And 2 days later, he was back in Durban, and
wow,
he phoned me, and I remember the conversation. I said to him, why on earth have you come back? And his reply was, I forgot my toothbrush. You know, that was typical Mickey.
Mickey humour, yes.
Mickey humour. And that was where I met. When he went back to Oxford, we started corresponding.
By pen and paper, by the old-fashioned way.
Pardon?
With pen and paper.
Pen and paper, yes, that's all that existed then.
Yes.
And
so what year was that when you met him?
Oh, goodness,
47, 48?
I can't remember. It was late 40s, mid 40s.
Right, right.
And my music teacher in Durban, I had continued giving concerts and radio broadcasts, and my teacher in Durban had made arrangements for me to come and study with a teacher in London.
Oh wow.
So when Mickey heard that I was coming to London, he found accommodation for me and, you know, took off from there.
So you, basically, the relationship flourished in London?
It had ups and very many downs as well.
Oh really?
Yes.
Oh, interesting.
Ups and downs. But in the end we did get married.
Okay, so what you're saying is you may have split up a number of times. And
Pardon?
did you split up a number of times and then get back together?
We split up a couple of times, yes.
All right.
And then got back together and then got married.
So when were you married?
We got married in the St. John's Wood Shul.
Oh wow, I've been there.
And my parents gave me a lovely little reception at the Dorchester Hotel.
Lovely.
And we honeymooned in Cannes.
Wow.
And then we came to London and Mickey became, what do you call it, he went to work at the Middlesex Hospital. He'd qualified as a doctor.
Yes.
And he went to work at the Middlesex Hospital. And we had a lovely little flat in Hampstead.
Oh wow. Do you remember the address?
Yes, it was Fitzjohn's Avenue. I don't remember the number.
Wow.
But it was the chauffeur's flat of the big house, and it was so tiny. The kitchen was so small that I couldn't open the oven door unless I opened the kitchen door to let my bottom out, and then I could bend down and open the oven door.
Incredible.
But it was a lovely flat. It was Fitzjohn's Avenue, just below the tube station.
In Hampstead? In Hampstead, near Hampstead?
In Hampstead.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay, so right at the top of the hill.
Walk on the Hampstead Heath.
Wow.
And there was a lovely little Polish restaurant there that we used to go for lunch on Sundays.
Wow.
And I loved London. I felt that was my spiritual home. I was very happy living in London.
And then when did you return to South Africa?
We came back when Mickey's mother was very ill. She had cancer.
Right.
And we just gave a month's notice for the flat that we had. And we came out thinking we'd go back in a month. I packed suitcases of our stuff which we put into storage, and we each came out with just one case thinking we'd only be here a month. But he found that she was in a much more advanced stage of cancer.
And did you go back by boat or by aeroplane?
So, no, by plane. So we didn't go back, we stayed on. And coming out, I must tell you, we were booked on the first Comet to come out to South Africa. And then I can't remember the reason, but that
which airport did you land at? Just close the door, please.
That booking was cancelled, and that plane crashed into the ocean.
Was that the one that crashed outside Rome? Into the ocean, just off Italy? That was the famous Comet crash.
And we were supposed to have been on that Comet.
Gosh. So
and
you were
I
very
can't
lucky.
remember the reason for our booking having been cancelled. Anyway, we, thank God, avoided the crash, and we came out, and then we decided we were going to have to stay. Mickey felt he couldn't leave his mother in the condition she was in. He knew it was just a matter of time.
Right.